The gunshot echoed across the Montana foothills, startling a flock of birds into flight as Beau Jameson reined in his horse, squinting against the setting sun. It wasn't hunting season, and the shot had the desperate ring of trouble rather than sport. In 1876, trouble wasn't something a man went looking for in the wilderness, but neither was it something Beau could ignore. The second gunshot confirmed his suspicions. Nudging his palomino, Thunder, forward, Beau followed the sound deeper into the pine-covered hills. The air had the crisp bite of early autumn, and daylight was fading fast. Another hour and the Montana wilderness would be plunged into darkness. "Easy boy," he murmured, patting Thunder's neck as they navigated the rocky incline. Beau had been riding fence for the Diamond Creek Ranch for 3 days now, and he'd planned to make it back to the bunkhouse by nightfall. Those plans were changing by the minute. As he crested the hill, Thunder's ears pricked forward. There, in a small clearing beside a stream, Beau spotted a covered wagon. One wheel was broken, the canvas torn, and no horses in sight. Smoke from a recently extinguished fire rose in thin wisps, drawing his Winchester from its saddle holster. Beau approached cautiously. "Hello, the wagon." He called. "Anyone there?" A rustling sound came from behind a nearby boulder, followed by another shot that kicked up dirt mere inches from Thunder's hooves. The horse reared, nearly unseating Beau. "I'm not looking for trouble," Beau called out, steadying his mount. "I heard shots." "Thought someone might need help." Silence followed, then a woman's voice, trembling but determined. "Stay back, I'll shoot again, and I won't miss this time." "Madam, I work for Diamond Creek Ranch," Beau said, lowering his rifle but keeping it ready. "Name's Beau Jameson, I mean no harm." Slowly, a figure emerged from behind the boulder. A woman in her early 20s, her dark hair falling loose from what had once been a neat bun. Her dress was torn and dirty, and she held a small revolver in hands that shook despite her obvious efforts to steady them. Her face was smudged with dirt, but even so, Beau could see she was beautiful, with striking blue eyes that assessed him with both fear and defiance. "Are you alone?" she asked, the gun still pointed in his direction. "Yes, madam, just me and Thunder here." Beau remained still, knowing sudden movements might spook her as much as they would a wild horse. "Mind lowering that pistol? My mama raised me never to harm a lady, but accidents happen when folks are nervous." After a moment's hesitation, she lowered the gun, though she didn't put it away. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice softening. "It's been a difficult day." Beau nodded toward the wagon. "I can see that. What happened to your horses, your traveling companions?" Pain flashed across her face. "Bandits. They took the horses, our supplies." Her voice caught. "My father tried to stop them. They shot him. I managed to hide, but..." She gestured helplessly at the wagon. "I'm alone now." Dismounting slowly, Beau tied Thunder to a nearby pine. "I'm mighty sorry for your loss, miss." "Olivia," she replied. "Olivia Kent. Miss Kent, may I approach?" She nodded, tucking the small revolver into her pocket as Beau came closer. Now he could see the tear tracks cutting through the dust on her cheeks, and the way exhaustion seemed to hang on her like a physical weight. "How long ago?" he asked gently. "Yesterday morning. I buried him." Her voice broke, and she pointed to a mound of earth and stones near the edge of the clearing. "I couldn't leave him for the animals." Beau removed his hat, holding it respectfully over his heart as he glanced at the crude grave. "You did right by him," he said softly. "But you can't stay out here alone. These hills aren't safe, especially with night coming on." "I don't have much choice," Olivia said, lifting her chin with stubborn pride. "I've been trying to fix the wheel, but that's a job for a wheelwright, not something to attempt out here," Beau interrupted. "And you said yourself the horses are gone. I thought perhaps if I could signal someone on the main trail." "The main trail's 5 miles east, and there's no guarantee anyone would pass by for days." Beau studied the darkening sky. "Miss Kent, I don't mean to frighten you further, but there are more than just human predators in these hills, once night falls." Fear flickered in her eyes, but she quickly masked it. "What do you suggest?" "My ranch is too far to reach before dark, but I know these hills. There's a sheltered spot about half a mile from here. We can make camp for the night, and I'll get you to town tomorrow." Suspicion replaced the fear in her expression. "How do I know I can trust you? You could be one of them coming back to, too." Beau held up his hands. "I understand your caution. Take your gun and whatever valuables you have left, keep them close. But Miss Kent, staying here alone isn't an option. She looked around the clearing, then back at the grave of her father. Indecision was clear in the way she bit her lower lip, in the tightening of her fingers around the pocket where she'd stashed her revolver. I give you my word as a gentleman, Beau said quietly. You're safe. I'll guard you through the night. Something in his tone's sincerity, perhaps, or the simple honesty in his eyes seemed to reach her. Her shoulders relaxed slightly. Very well, Mr. Jameson. Let me gather what little I have left. While Olivia collected her belongings from the wagon, Beau took a moment to examine her father's grave. He added a few more rocks to the pile, offering a silent prayer for the man's soul. When Olivia returned with a small carpet bag and her father's shotgun, Beau noted her eyes were dry, though redness around the rims suggested she'd been fighting tears. Do you ride, Miss Kent? He asked. Yes, my father taught me when I was a girl. Beau helped her mount Thunder, then took the reins and led the horse on foot through the gathering dusk. They traveled in silence, the only sounds the soft crunching of pine needles beneath their feet and the occasional call of birds settling for the night. The spot Beau had in mind was a small overhang of rock that created a natural shelter, with a stream nearby and enough flat ground to make a comfortable camp. As they arrived, the first stars were beginning to appear in the purple twilight. It's not the Fairmont Hotel, Beau said with an attempt at lightness as he helped Olivia down from Thunder, but it'll keep us dry and hidden. It's fine, she said, her voice small and tired. Thank you. Beau efficiently set up camp, gathering firewood and starting a small, well-contained fire while Olivia sat wrapped in the blanket he'd given her from his saddlebags. Her eyes never left him, watchful but no longer openly suspicious. Are you hungry? He asked, pulling out jerky and hardtack from his provisions. It's not much, but it'll keep your strength up. She accepted the food with murmured thanks, eating mechanically while Beau tended to Thunder, removing the saddle and brushing the horse down before securing him for the night. When he returned to the fire, Olivia had finished eating and was staring into the flames, lost in thought. The firelight softened her features, highlighting the delicate curve of her cheek and the way her dark hair shone with hidden mahogany tints. Where were you and your father headed? Beau asked, settling across from her. Olivia looked up as if surprised by the question. Silverdale. My father's brother lives there. After my mother passed last winter, father thought a fresh start would be good for us both. She swallowed hard. Uncle Henry doesn't even know we were coming. It was to be a surprise. Silverdale's about 2 days' ride from here, Beau said. I can get you there. Surprise flickered across her face. You do that? Why? Beau shrugged, poking at the fire with a stick. Can't very well leave a lady stranded in the wilderness, can I? Besides, it's on my way, more or less. She studied him for a long moment as if trying to read something in his face. You're not what I expected, Mr. Jameson. How's that, when I first saw you? Well, you look like the men in those dime novels, the dangerous type. Beau couldn't help but laugh. At 32, he'd spent enough years working the land and cattle to have the weathered look of a man who lived outdoors. His sun-browned skin, the scar that bisected his left eyebrow from a ranch accident years ago, and the calluses on his hands all spoke of a hard life. Appearances can be deceiving, Miss Kent. I'm just a ranch hand trying to make an honest living. Tell me about your ranch, she said, pulling the blanket tighter around her shoulders as the night air cooled further. Diamond Creek's not my ranch. I work there for Mr. Henderson. Good man, fair employer. We run about 500 head of cattle on 20,000 acres. Beau added another small log to the fire. Been there 5 years now. Before that, I drifted some, worked wherever I could find work. Texas, Kansas, Colorado. You've seen a lot of the country then. More than most, less than some. He glanced at her across the flames. What about you? What awaits you in Silverdale besides your uncle? Olivia's gaze returned to the fire. I don't know. Father was a carpenter. I suppose Uncle Henry might need help in his store. He owns a general merchandise business, according to Father's letters. You have any skills? Besides being a crack shot with that little pistol of yours, Beau added with a small smile. The ghost of a smile touched her lips in return. I'm educated. I can read, write, do figures. I taught school for a year back in Ohio before Mother's illness required me at home. She hesitated. I can cook and sew too, though I suppose every woman can claim those skills. Don't sell yourself short. Good teachers are always needed out here. They talked as the night deepened, Beau sharing stories of ranch life while carefully avoiding asking too many questions about her father's death. He could see the way grief sat heavy on her shoulders and knew the wound was too fresh to probe. As the fire burned low, Olivia's eyelids grew heavy. Beau spread his bedroll near the fire for her. "You should get some sleep," he said. "I'll keep watch all night." She asked, concern in her voice. "I'm used to long nights on the trail, don't worry about me." Olivia hesitated, then settled onto the bedroll. "Thank you, Mr. Jameson, for everything." "Beau," he said. "Might as well use my Christian name." She nodded sleepily. "Good night, Beau." "Good night, Miss Kent." "Olivia," she murmured, eyes already closing. "My friends call me Olivia." Beau smiled to himself as her breathing evened out into sleep. He added wood to the fire and settled against a tree trunk, rifle across his knees, keeping watch as promised. The night was quiet except for the occasional hoot of an owl or the distant howl of a coyote. The stars wheeled overhead, a spectacular display that never failed to humble him. He found his gaze continually drawn to Olivia's sleeping form. In slumber, the tension had eased from her face, revealing the youth that grief and fear had momentarily aged. She couldn't be more than 22 or 23, he guessed, too young to have faced such violence and loss. Sometime in the darkest part of the night, Olivia began to whimper in her sleep. Her hands clenched into fists and she thrashed against some nightmare opponent. "Father, no," she cried out. Beau moved to her side, gently touching her shoulder. "Olivia, wake up, you're dreaming." Her eyes flew open, wild with panic until recognition dawned. "Beau, I'm here, you're safe." To his surprise, she reached for him, fingers clutching at his shirt as if to anchor herself to reality. Without thinking, he gathered her into his arms, holding her as she trembled. "I saw them shooting him again," she whispered against his chest. "Over and over." "It was just a dream," he soothed, though he knew the nightmare reflected a reality too painful to contemplate. "I couldn't save him," she said, her voice breaking. "I just hid like a coward." "You did what you had to do to survive," Beau said firmly. "That's not cowardice, Olivia, that's sense. Your father would want you alive." She pulled away slightly, looking up at him in the dim firelight. "How would you know what my father would want?" "Because any decent father would rather die 100 deaths than see his child harmed," Beau replied, thinking of his own father, dead these 15 years but still a powerful influence in his life. "Living is how you honor him now." Tears welled in her eyes, but she blinked them back. "I'll try to remember that." Beau expected her to pull away completely, to return to her bedroll, but instead she remained close, her head resting against his shoulder. He should have encouraged her to lie back down, to maintain the propriety that circumstances had already strained. Instead, he adjusted his position to make her more comfortable and kept his arm around her. "Try to sleep," he said softly. "I've got you." Eventually, her breathing deepened again, and Beau knew she'd fallen back asleep. He should move her, but he couldn't bring himself to risk waking her. So he remained still, feeling the weight of her trust more powerfully than he'd expected. Dawn found them still in that position, Olivia curled against him, Beau's back stiff from sitting upright all night. He was awake to see the first golden rays breaking over the eastern hills, painting the landscape in warm light that belied the coolness of the morning air. Olivia stirred, then suddenly sat upright as awareness returned. A blush stained her cheeks as she realized how she'd spent the night. "I'm sorry," she said, smoothing her rumpled hair. "I didn't mean to." "No harm done," Beau assured her, stretching to work the kinks from his muscles. "You needed the rest." They shared a simple breakfast of the remaining jerky and biscuits from Beau's provisions. Olivia seemed more herself this morning, the night's rest despite the nightmares having restored some of her composure. "What will happen to my father's wagon?" she asked as they prepared to leave. "And his belongings?" "I'll send word to the sheriff in Montana City once we reach Silverdale," Beau promised. "They'll recover what they can." She nodded, seemingly satisfied with this answer. After gathering their few belongings, Beau helped Olivia onto Thunder, then swung up behind her. It was improper, perhaps, but practicality outweighed convention in the wilderness. As they rode away from the campsite, Beau felt Olivia tense. He followed her gaze back toward the direction of her father's grave, now miles away and hidden by the rolling landscape. "We can go back if you wish," he offered quietly. "Say another goodbye." Olivia shook her head. "No, father always said to face forward, not back. He wouldn't want me lingering." They rode in companionable silence for much of the morning, the rhythmic movement of the horse and the beauty of the Montana wilderness providing a backdrop for their own thoughts. Occasionally, Beau would point out landmarks or share bits of local knowledge, and Olivia would respond with genuine interest. Around midday, they stopped beside a creek to rest thunder and eat the last of their provisions. Olivia removed her shoes and stockings to dip her feet in the cool water, sighing with relief. "I've never ridden this far before," she admitted. "Not in one stretch." Beau, refilling their canteen upstream, glanced over at her. With her hair loose around her shoulders and her face tilted up to catch the sun, she looked younger, almost carefree. It struck him how quickly humans could adapt, finding moments of peace even in the midst of tragedy. "We'll reach the main trail by evening," he said. "There's a way station there where we can spend the night. Get a proper meal too." "I have no money," Olivia said, her expression clouding. "The bandits took everything. Don't worry about that, I've got enough." "I can't let you pay my way, Beau. You've already done too much," he shrugged. "Consider it a loan if it makes you feel better. You can repay me once you're settled in Silverdale." She studied him for a moment, then nodded. "A loan, then. I pay my debts, Mr. Jameson. Never doubted it for a minute, Miss Kent." Her laugh surprised them, both a small sound, rusty from disuse but genuine. "We keep switching between formality and familiarity. It's rather confusing." "Out here, folks tend to use what fits the moment," Beau said with a smile, "but I'm happy to be Beau to you all the time." "And I'm Olivia," she said, returning his smile with a small one of her own. "All the time." They continued their journey after the brief rest, Olivia more relaxed against him now. Beau found himself increasingly aware of her presence, the scent of her hair, the warmth of her back against his chest, the way her hands occasionally brushed his where they held the reins together. By late afternoon, they reached the main trail that connected Montana City to the smaller settlements that dotted the territory. The way station came into view just as the sun began its descent, a sturdy log building with a stable attached, smoke rising from the chimney in a welcoming plume. The proprietor, a gruff older man named Silas Jenkins, greeted them with the curious but not unfriendly assessment common to those who made their living serving travelers in remote locations. "Room for the night?" he asked, eyeing them both. "Got one cabin left. Usually charge extra for a lady on account of the clean linens." "That'll do fine," Beau said, passing over the coins. "And 2 hot meals if your wife's still cooking." "Martha's always cooking," Silas replied with a hint of pride. "Best food between here and Helena, you two married." Before Beau could answer, Olivia stepped forward. "My husband is escorting me to my uncle's home in Silverdale," she said smoothly. "We're most grateful for your hospitality." Beau managed to keep his surprise from showing, understanding her quick thinking. A single woman traveling alone with a man not her husband would raise eyebrows at best, invite scandal at worst. "Well, cabin 3 is yours," Silas said, handing over a key. "Supper's in an hour." As they walked toward the small cabin, leading Thunder to the stable first, Beau murmured, "Quick thinking, Mrs. Jameson." Olivia blushed. "I hope you don't mind. It seemed the simplest explanation." "No explanation needed," he assured her. "You're right, it's easier this way." The cabin was simple but clean, with a single bed, a washstand, and a small table with 2 chairs. A fire had been laid in the small stone fireplace, ready for lighting. "You take the bed," Beau said immediately. "I'll sleep on the floor." "You didn't sleep at all last night," Olivia protested. "You need proper rest. I've slept on worse than a plank floor, believe me." Olivia looked as if she might argue further, but instead she nodded. "Thank you." After settling Thunder in the stable, they made their way to the main building for supper. The common room was warm and smoky, with half a dozen other travelers seated at long tables. Conversation quieted briefly as they entered, curious glances taking in the newcomers before talk resumed. Martha Jenkins proved to be a formidable cook indeed. The stew was rich with vegetables and tender meat, the bread freshly baked, and there was even apple pie for dessert. Beau watched with satisfaction as Olivia ate heartily, color returning to her cheeks with each bite. "First decent meal I've had in weeks," she admitted. The trail rations father packed were practical rather than tasty. "Your father sounds like a sensible man." Olivia's expression softened. He was, practical in all things except perhaps his dreams. Moving west was his great adventure. He talked about it for years after Mother died, planning every detail. She pushed a piece of crust around her plate. "I wonder if he would have come if he'd known." "No one can know the future," Beau said gently. "He made the best choice he could with the information he had." "As we all do, I suppose." Olivia looked up, meeting his eyes. "Like you choosing to help a stranger in the hills. Some choices are easier than others." Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of another traveler, a well-dressed man in his 40s who entered with the confidence of someone accustomed to authority. He spoke briefly with Silas, then approached their table. "Pardon the intrusion," he said, tipping his hat politely. "Marshal Daniel Cooper, I couldn't help overhearing you mention bandits earlier." He addressed this to Olivia directly. "We've had reports of a gang operating in this area. I'd be grateful for any information you might provide." Olivia paled, her fingers tightening around her fork. Beau placed his hand over hers, offering silent support. "My wife's father was killed by bandits 2 days ago," he said, maintaining the pretense they'd established. "It's still very fresh, Marshal." Cooper's expression softened with genuine sympathy. "I'm truly sorry for your loss, madam. I don't wish to cause you additional distress, but if you could describe the men, it might help us bring them to justice." Olivia took a deep breath, then nodded. There were 3 of them. The leader was tall, with a scar from here to here. She traced a line from her left temple to the corner of her mouth. Another had a red beard, and the third was younger, maybe 20. They wore bandanas over their faces, but they slipped. Did they say anything that might identify them? Names, references to places? "The one with the scar called the youngest one Billy," Olivia recalled, her voice steadying as she spoke. "And they mentioned something about meeting others at the canyon." Cooper nodded, making notes in a small book. "That's helpful, Mrs. Jameson," Beau supplied. "Olivia Jameson, Mrs. Jameson, I know this is difficult, but your testimony could be crucial. Would you be willing to make a formal statement when you reach your destination? I can arrange for the local sheriff to take your deposition." Olivia hesitated, then squared her shoulders. "Yes, if it will help catch them, yes." "I appreciate your courage." Cooper tipped his hat again. "Mr. Jameson, where are you headed?" "Silverdale," Beau answered. "My wife's uncle lives there. I'll send word to Sheriff Reynolds to expect you." The marshal handed Beau a card with his details. "If you remember anything else, anything at all, please let him know." After Cooper departed, Olivia remained quiet, her earlier appetite gone. Beau suggested they return to their cabin, where he built a fire while she sat lost in thought. "Are you all right?" he asked finally, breaking the silence. "I didn't think I remembered so much," she said softly, but when he asked, suddenly I could see their faces clearly, hear their voices. She looked up at Beau, her eyes haunted. "I want them caught. I want them to pay for what they did to father." The marshal seems capable, and now they know to look for 3 men, one with a distinctive scar. "Do you think they'll find them?" Beau wanted to offer certainty but couldn't bring himself to lie. "I hope so. The territory's vast, but men like that tend to make enemies." "Someone will talk eventually." Olivia nodded, accepting his honest assessment. "Thank you for being there with me. I don't think I could have faced the marshal alone." "You're stronger than you give yourself credit for," Beau said, "but I'm glad I could help." She smiled faintly, then stifled a yawn. The emotional toll of the day had clearly exhausted her. "You should rest," Beau suggested, spreading his blanket on the floor near the fire. "We've got another full day of riding tomorrow." Olivia didn't argue. She took her carpet bag behind a small screen in the corner to change, then emerged in a simple nightdress, her hair braided for sleep. The modest garment still revealed the graceful lines of her neck and the delicate bones of her wrists, and Beau found himself looking away, suddenly conscious of their intimate surroundings in a way he hadn't been in the wilderness. "Good night, Beau," Olivia said, slipping under the covers of the bed. "Good night, Olivia, sleep well," but sleep didn't come easily to either of them. Beau could hear Olivia tossing and turning, and his own thoughts were a jumble of concerns about the bandits, about their journey tomorrow, and increasingly about the woman whose trust he'd somehow earned. "Beau," Olivia's whisper came through the darkness. "Are you awake?" "Yes." "I keep thinking about those men. What if they come back? What if they find out I survived and can identify them?" Beau sat up, able to make out her silhouette in the dim light from the banked fire. "They have no reason to think you survived or that you saw their faces clearly. And they certainly don't know where you're headed. But if they're caught and there's a trial, then you'll have the full protection of the law," Beau assured her, "and me for whatever that's worth." There was a pause. "It's worth a great deal," she said finally, "more than I can express." Something in her tone made his heart beat faster. "Try to sleep," he said gently. "I'm right here if you need me." Eventually, her breathing deepened into the rhythm of sleep. Beau lay awake longer, watching the play of shadows on the ceiling and wondering at the strange turn his simple fence riding duty had taken. Morning came with the smell of coffee and bacon from the main house. Olivia was already awake and dressed when Beau opened his eyes, sitting by the window with her hair catching the early sunlight. "You should have woken me," he said, sitting up. "You needed the rest," she replied with a small smile. "Besides, I've been enjoying the view. It's beautiful here." Beau joined her at the window. The way station sat on a rise that overlooked a valley, with mountains rising majestically in the distance, their peaks touched with the last of winter's snow despite the autumn season. "Montana has its charms," he agreed. "Different from Ohio, I imagine." "Very different, wilder, more dangerous perhaps, but also more alive somehow." She turned to face him. "I understand why Father wanted to come west despite the risks. And now, do you still want to stay after everything?" Olivia considered the question seriously. "Yes," she said finally. "I think I do. Running back east won't bring Father back, and there's something about this land that calls to me, even through the grief." Beau nodded, understanding exactly what she meant. He'd felt the same pull when he first came west, a sense that despite all its harshness and unpredictability, this was where he belonged. They ate breakfast in the common room, then prepared for the second day of their journey. Silas informed them that Silverdale was about 30 miles away, a full day's ride if they maintained a steady pace. "Stay on the main trail," he advised as they mounted up. "Bandits have been active lately." "So we heard from the marshal," Beau said. "We'll keep our eyes open." The day was perfect for traveling, with clear skies and a gentle breeze that kept the heat at bay. Thunder seemed refreshed by the night's rest in a proper stable, moving at a brisk pace that ate up the miles. Olivia sat more comfortably against Beau now, their bodies finding a natural rhythm together as they rode. They talked more freely than they had the previous day, sharing stories from their pasts. Beau told her about growing up on a small farm in Texas, about losing his parents to influenza when he was 17, about his years working cattle drives before settling at Diamond Creek Ranch. Olivia spoke of her childhood in Ohio, of teaching in a one-room schoolhouse, of caring for her mother during her long illness. She described her father's carpentry shop and how he'd taught her to appreciate the grain of wood, the satisfaction of creating something with your hands. "He made this for my 18th birthday," she said, showing Beau a small wooden locket she wore on a chain around her neck. Inside was a tiny painting of her mother. "Said every lady should have something beautiful that was hers alone." "He was right," Beau said, admiring the craftsmanship. "That's fine work. It's all I have left of them both now," Olivia said, tucking the locket back inside her dress. "Everything else was in the wagon." "Not everything," Beau corrected gently. "You have your memories, your education, your courage. Those things can't be stolen." She twisted slightly to look up at him. "How do you always know the right thing to say?" "I don't," he admitted with a wry smile. "Most times I'm fumbling in the dark, but I've had my share of losses. I know something of what you're feeling." They stopped at midday beside a small pond, sharing the food Martha Jenkins had packed for them. The conversation flowed easily between them now, punctuated by comfortable silences. "Tell me about Silverdale," Beau suggested as they prepared to continue their journey. "What do you know about your uncle's life there?" "Not much," Olivia admitted. "Father received letters perhaps twice a year. Uncle Henry moved west 15 years ago, shortly after the gold rush. He never found gold, but he found opportunity. His general store does well, from what Father said." "And he's your only family now," Olivia nodded. "Mother was an only child, and Father's parents died before I was born. There's a cousin somewhere in Pennsylvania, but we've never met." "Your uncle will be glad to see you," Beau said reassuringly. "Family is precious out here." "I hope so," Olivia said, though doubt lingered in her voice. "I'm arriving unannounced, with nothing but the clothes on my back and a tragic story, hardly the ideal house guest." "You're not a house guest, you're his niece." They remounted and continued towards Silverdale, the landscape gradually changing as they descended into a broader valley. Farms appeared, then small homesteads closer together, until finally they crested a hill and saw the town spread out before them. Silverdale was larger than Beau had expected, not a metropolis by any means, but a substantial settlement with a main street lined with businesses, side streets with neat houses, and even a small church with a white steeple. The late afternoon sun gilded the scene, making it appear almost idyllic. "It's bigger than I imagined," Olivia said, echoing his thoughts. "Your uncle's store, do you know where it is?" "On the main street, I believe. Kent's General Merchandise." They rode into town at a leisurely pace, both of them studying the buildings they passed. Silverdale had the look of a place that had found its footing, not the raw, temporary feel of a boom town, but the solid construction of a community that expected to endure. Kent's General Merchandise was easy to spot, a large two-story building in the center of Main Street with a freshly painted sign. A bell jingled as they entered, and a balding man in his 50s looked up from behind the counter. "Be with you in a moment," he called, finishing a transaction with another customer. Beau felt Olivia tense beside him and placed a reassuring hand at the small of her back. "It'll be all right," he murmured. When the other customer departed, the man approached them with a shopkeeper's practiced smile. "How can I help you folks today?" Olivia stepped forward. "Uncle Henry, it's Olivia, Thomas Kent's daughter." The man's smile froze, then slowly faded as confusion replaced it. "Olivia, little Livy." His gaze moved from her face to Beau, then back again. "What on earth are you doing here? Where's your father?" "May we speak privately, Uncle?" Olivia asked, her voice steady despite the trembling. Beau could feel through his hand on her back. Henry Kent looked around the empty store, then nodded. "Of course, come through to the back." He led them through a door behind the counter into a small office cluttered with ledgers and inventory lists. After offering them seats, he settled behind his desk, still looking bewildered. "Now then, what's this all about, and who's your companion?" "This is Beau Jameson," Olivia said. "He's the reason I'm here safely." She took a deep breath. "Uncle Henry, I'm afraid I have terrible news. Father is dead." The blunt words seemed to physically impact Henry, who rocked back in his chair. "Thomas, dead? How? When?" Olivia recounted the attack, her voice remarkably steady as she described the bandits, her father's attempt to defend them, and her own narrow escape. She explained how Beau had found her alone in the hills and brought her safely to Silverdale. Throughout the telling, Henry's expression shifted from shock to grief to something harder to read. When she finished, he rose and paced to the window, his back to them. "This is devastating news," he said finally, turning back to face them. "Thomas was my only brother. We had our differences, but—" He shook his head. "And now you're here alone." "Yes, Uncle, I'm sorry to arrive without warning and in such circumstances. Father had planned to surprise you." Henry ran a hand over his balding head. "Well, it's certainly a surprise." He glanced at Beau. "You have my gratitude, Mr. Jameson, for bringing my niece safely to me." "It was the right thing to do," Beau said simply. An awkward silence fell, broken by Henry clearing his throat. "Olivia, you must be exhausted. My home is just behind the store. Mrs. Kent, your Aunt Isabel, will help you get settled." "Thank you, Uncle. And Mr. Jameson, will you be staying in town?" Beau hesitated. He hadn't thought beyond getting Olivia safely to her uncle. "I should return to my ranch. I'm already overdue." At least stay for supper, Henry insisted. It's the least we can do to thank you. That's very kind, but please, Beau, Olivia interrupted, her eyes conveying a message he couldn't quite read. Just for tonight. Unable to refuse her, Beau nodded. Thank you, Mr. Kent, I accept. Henry called for his assistant to mind the store, then led them through a back door into a small but well-tended garden that separated the store from a handsome two-story house. Isabel Kent, a plump, pleasant-faced woman in her 40s, greeted them with surprise that quickly turned to dismay as her husband explained the situation. "Oh, you poor dear," she exclaimed, embracing Olivia. "What a terrible ordeal, you must be exhausted. Come, let's get you settled and comfortable." She turned to Beau with a warm smile. "And you, Mr. Jameson, we're deeply indebted to you. Anyone would have done the same, madam." "I very much doubt that," Isabel said shrewdly. "Now, both of you must be hungry and in need of freshening up. Henry, show Mr. Jameson to the guest room. Olivia can have the blue bedroom." The next hour passed in a flurry of activity. Beau was shown to a comfortable guest room where hot water, towels, and even a razor awaited him. He washed away the dust of travel and changed into the clean shirt. Isabel provided one of Henry's that was slightly too large but welcome nonetheless. When he came downstairs, he found Olivia already in the parlor with her aunt and uncle. She had changed into a borrowed dress of Isabel's, hastily altered to fit her slimmer frame. Her hair was neatly arranged, and though signs of her ordeal still lingered in the shadows beneath her eyes, she looked more composed. "There you are, Mr. Jameson," Isabel said cheerfully. "I was just telling Olivia that the sheriff will want to speak with her tomorrow about the attack. Marshal Cooper sent word ahead, apparently." "That was quick," Beau remarked, taking the seat Isabel indicated. "Telegraph," Henry explained. "Silverdale's been connected for 2 years now. Brings us into the modern age, so to speak." Supper was a somewhat strained affair, with Isabel making valiant efforts at conversation while Henry remained preoccupied and Olivia picked at her food. Beau answered Isabel's questions about his ranch and his journey with Olivia, careful to maintain the pretense that they'd traveled as husband and wife. After the meal, Henry excused himself to return to the store for the evening closing, leaving Beau alone with Olivia and her aunt. "My dear, you're practically asleep at the table," Isabel said kindly. "Why don't you retire? Everything will seem better after a good night's rest in a proper bed." Olivia nodded gratefully. "Thank you, Aunt Isabel." She turned to Beau. "Will you still be here in the morning?" "I should leave at first light," he said, though the words felt wrong somehow. "I need to report back to my employer." Disappointment flickered across Olivia's face before she masked it. "Of course, you've already done far more than could be expected." She extended her hand. "I can never thank you enough, Beau." He took her hand, feeling the same connection that had been growing between them over their short acquaintance. "It was my honor, Olivia." She held his gaze a moment longer than necessary, then withdrew her hand and bid them good night. After Olivia had gone upstairs, Isabel studied Beau with shrewd eyes. "You care for her," it wasn't a question. Beau saw no point in denying it. "She's a remarkable young woman." "Yes, she is, and she's been through a terrible ordeal." Isabel leaned forward. "Mr. Jameson, I sense you're an honorable man, so I'll speak plainly. My niece is vulnerable right now. Grief can make people form attachments that in ordinary circumstances they might approach more cautiously." Beau nodded, understanding her concern. "I assure you, Mrs. Kent, I have only Olivia's best interests at heart. I believe you, but consider that the best thing for her right now might be stability and time to heal." Isabel's expression softened. "That's not to say there mightn't be a future for whatever is growing between you. Just that rushing it would be unwise." Beau considered her words carefully. "You're right, of course. Olivia needs time. And you, what do you need, Mr. Jameson?" The question caught him off guard. What did he need? For years, he'd been content with his life at Diamond Creek Ranch, the hard work, the camaraderie of his fellow hands, the simple pleasures of a job well done. But in the space of 2 days, something had shifted. "I need to know she's all right," he said finally, "that she's safe and cared for." Isabel smiled. "She will be. Henry and I never had children of our own. Having Olivia here, well, it's an unexpected blessing despite the tragic circumstances." She mentioned her uncle might need help in the store. Oh, certainly. Henry's been talking about expanding for months. And Silverdale is growing. We have a proper school now that could use a trained teacher. Beau felt a weight lift from his shoulders. Olivia would be all right here. She would find her place, heal from her trauma, build a new life. Thank you, Mrs. Kent. I'll rest easier knowing that. You're welcome to visit, you know, Isabel added with a knowing smile. Once some time has passed, Beau returned her smile. I'd like that very much. Later, alone in the guest room, Beau stood at the window looking out at the quiet town. Silverdale seemed a good place, prosperous, civilized, but still with the frontier spirit that had drawn so many west. Olivia would thrive here, he was certain. The thought of leaving her in the morning sat like a stone in his chest. 2 days was hardly enough time to know someone, yet he felt as if he'd recognized something in Olivia from the first moment, a kindred spirit, perhaps, or simply a goodness that resonated with his own values. A soft knock at his door interrupted his thoughts. He opened it to find Olivia standing there in a dressing gown, her hair loose around her shoulders. I couldn't sleep, she said simply. Beau stepped back to let her enter, conscious of the impropriety but unable to turn her away. Is everything all right? Olivia moved to the window where he'd been standing, looking out at the town that was to be her new home. Everyone's been very kind, Aunt Isabel especially. They seem like good people, she nodded. They are, and I'm grateful. She turned to face him. But tomorrow you'll be gone, and I'll be here among kind strangers, starting over again. Your aunt and uncle will soon be family in more than name, Beau assured her, and you'll make friends in town. I know. She twisted her hands together. Beau, I wanted to thank you properly. Not just for saving my life, but for seeing me through the darkest moments, for being there when I had no one. You don't need to thank me for that. Yes, I do. Olivia stepped closer. When you found me, I was certain my life was over, if not physically, then in every way that mattered. I couldn't imagine finding joy or purpose again after what happened. Her voice softened. But these past 2 days with you, you've shown me that life continues, that good people still exist in this world. Beau's heart hammered in his chest. Olivia, I know what you're going to say, she interrupted. That it's too soon, that I'm confused by grief and gratitude, and perhaps there's some truth in that. She met his eyes steadily. But I also know my own mind, Beau Jameson, and I know that meeting you has changed something in me. It's changed me too, he admitted. But your aunt is right. You need time to heal to find your footing here. And then, the hope in her voice was unmistakable. Beau took her hands in his. And then I'll come back if you still want me to. I will, she said with such certainty that he almost believed it could be that simple. Diamond Creek Ranch is only 3 days' ride from here, Beau said. Less if I push hard. I could visit in a month or so, see how you're settling in. Olivia's face brightened. You would do that. Try to stop me, she laughed then, a genuine sound that transformed her face. On impulse, Beau brought her hand to his lips, pressing a gentle kiss to her knuckles. She blushed but didn't pull away. I should go, she said reluctantly, before my aunt comes looking for me. Yes, you should. Neither of them moved. Instead, as if drawn by an invisible force, they leaned toward each other until their lips met in a kiss that was both tender and filled with promise. It lasted only a moment before Olivia stepped back, her cheeks flushed. Good night, Beau, she whispered, moving toward the door. Good night, Olivia, sleep well. After she left, Beau returned to the window, but now his view of Silverdale was transformed. No longer just a town where he would leave Olivia to build a new life without him. It had become a destination, a place he would return to. A place where, perhaps, his own future might be reshaped. Morning came too quickly. Beau rose before dawn, dressing quietly and making his way downstairs to find Henry already in the kitchen. Coffee, the older man offered, holding up a pot. Thank you. They sat in companionable silence as the house began to stir around them. Isabel appeared, then finally Olivia, dressed in another of her aunt's altered dresses. Breakfast was a subdued affair, the impending parting hanging over the table. When the meal was finished, Beau thanked the Kents for their hospitality and went to ready thunder for the journey back to Diamond Creek Ranch. Olivia followed him to the stable. I wish you didn't have to go, she said quietly as he saddled the horse. So do I, he admitted. But Mr. Henderson is expecting me back, and you need time to settle here. She nodded, understanding if not happy. You will come back, as soon as I can. He reached into his saddlebag and withdrew a small leather-bound journal. Here, I want you to have this. Olivia took it, opening to find blank pages. What's this for? Write to me, Beau said. Even if you can't send the letters yet, write down what you're thinking, what you're feeling. Share your new life with me, even while we're apart. Tears welled in her eyes. I will. He mounted Thunder, looking down at her one last time. Be well, Olivia Kent. I'll be thinking of you every day until I return. And I'll be waiting, she promised. With a final nod to Henry and Isabel, who had come to see him off, Beau urged Thunder forward, riding out of Silverdale as the town came fully awake around him. He didn't look back, knowing that if he saw Olivia watching him leave, his resolve to do the right thing might waver. The journey back to Diamond Creek Ranch took 3 days of hard riding. Beau pushed himself and Thunder, stopping only when necessary, his mind continually returning to Olivia and the brief, intense connection they had formed. Mr. Henderson was understanding about his extended absence once Beau explained the circumstances. You did right by that girl, the rancher said gruffly. Her father would be grateful. Thank you, sir. I'd like to request some time off in about a month if that's possible. To check on Miss Kent's welfare, Henderson studied him with knowing eyes. Found something more important than cattle, have you? Perhaps, sir. With your permission, I'd like to find out. The rancher nodded. A month it is then, you've earned it. Beau threw himself back into ranch work, finding comfort in the familiar routines of caring for cattle, mending fences, and working alongside men he'd known for years. But his thoughts were never far from Silverdale and the woman he'd left there. The month passed more slowly than any in Beau's memory. Each day was marked off mentally, bringing him closer to the time when he could justifiably return to Silverdale. He wondered how Olivia was adjusting, whether her grief was easing, whether she still thought of him as often as he thought of her. Finally, the appointed time arrived. With Henderson's blessing and good-natured teasing from his fellow hands, Beau set out for Silverdale. He rode with a lighter heart than when he'd left, anticipation replacing the sense of loss that had accompanied his departure. The town looked much the same as he approached, though now he viewed it with different eyes, not as a temporary stop on a journey, but as a place of significance, perhaps even a future home. Kent's general merchandise was busy when Beau entered, the bell jangling above the door. Henry looked up from helping a customer, recognition dawning on his face. Mr. Jameson, right on schedule, I see. Beau removed his hat. Mr. Kent, how are you, sir? Well, very well. Henry finished with his customer, then approached, offering his hand. And yourself, can't complain. Beau glanced around the store. Is Olivia? At the school, Henry said with a small smile. Our school teacher took ill 3 weeks ago. Olivia stepped in temporarily, and she's been such a success that the town council has asked her to stay on permanently. Pride swelled in Beau's chest. That's wonderful news. She's flourished here, Henry continued. Isabel and I couldn't be prouder if she were our own daughter. He checked his pocket watch. School should be letting out soon. Why don't you go surprise her? It's just down the street, can't miss it. Beau thanked him and headed in the direction Henry indicated. The schoolhouse was a modest building near the church, with a small bell tower and a playground area where children were already spilling out, their lessons finished for the day. He waited by the fence, watching as more children exited, calling goodbyes to someone still inside. Finally, Olivia appeared in the doorway, a book in her hand, smiling as she responded to a student's question. She looked different, Beau realized. Still beautiful, but somehow more substantial, more present. Her hair was arranged more simply than when he'd last seen her, practical for teaching, and her dress, while modest, fit her properly now, not the hastily altered borrowed garment she'd worn before. She hadn't seen him yet. Beau hesitated, suddenly uncertain. A month had passed, perhaps her feelings had changed. Perhaps the connection he'd felt had been, as Isabel suggested, merely the product of extreme circumstances. Then Olivia looked up, scanning the schoolyard to ensure all her students had been collected. Her gaze fell on him, and for a heartbeat she froze. Then her face transformed with joy, and she was hurrying across the yard, propriety forgotten, as she called his name. "Beau, you came back." "I said I would," he replied, unable to stop the smile spreading across his face. She reached the fence, her hands gripping the wooden rails as if to steady herself. "I wasn't sure. It's been a month, and people say things they don't always mean." "I meant every word," Beau assured her. "How are you, Olivia? Your uncle tells me you're the new school teacher." Pride colored her cheeks. "It's only temporary officially, but the children are wonderful and the town council seems pleased with my work." "I'm not surprised. You said you'd taught before." "Yes, but this is different. Here I feel useful, needed." She glanced back at the schoolhouse. "I should lock up. Will you wait?" "As long as it takes." While Olivia secured the schoolhouse, Beau watched the last of the children depart with their parents, several of whom nodded politely to him, curiosity evident in their expressions. Clearly, Olivia had made an impression on the town during her short time here. She returned moments later, slightly breathless. "There, all done for the day. May I walk you home?" Beau asked, offering his arm. Olivia took it with a smile. "I'd like that very much." As they walked through Silverdale, Beau was struck by how many people greeted Olivia by name with genuine warmth. She'd clearly integrated into the community rapidly, finding her place among these strangers who were now becoming friends and neighbors. "You seem settled here," he observed. "I am," she agreed. "More than I expected to be, honestly. After Father died, I couldn't imagine feeling at home anywhere again, but Aunt Isabel and Uncle Henry have been so kind and the people here have welcomed me. I'm glad." They reached the Kent's house, where Isabel was working in the front garden. She looked up with a knowing smile as they approached. "Well, look who's right on time," she said, brushing dirt from her hands. "Come in, both of you. I've just made lemonade." Over refreshments in the parlor, Beau shared news of Diamond Creek Ranch while Olivia told him about her experiences teaching. The conversation flowed easily, as if they'd known each other for years, rather than the brief time they'd actually spent together. "I've been writing in the journal you gave me," Olivia said when Isabel excused herself to start dinner. "Every day." "I'd like to read it sometime," Beau said. "If you're willing to share it, I'd like that." She hesitated. "How long can you stay this time?" "A few days." "Mr. Henderson gave me a week." Olivia's face lit up. "A whole week?" "Unless you'd rather I move on sooner," he teased. "Don't you dare." She reached for his hand, her expression turning serious. "Beau, this past month, I've thought about you every day. I've wondered if what we felt was real, or just the product of extreme circumstances, as Aunt Isabel suggested." "And what did you decide?" "That doesn't matter how something begins. What matters is whether it has the strength to continue." She met his eyes steadily. "I believe what's between us does." Beau squeezed her hand. "So do I." The week that followed was one of the happiest of Beau's life. He spent his days helping Henry at the store, getting to know the townspeople, and occasionally riding out to explore the surrounding countryside. His evenings were spent with the Kents and especially with Olivia, whose company he treasured more with each passing day. They walked together after supper, shared stories of their pasts, and made tentative plans for the future. Beau found himself imagining a life in Silverdale, perhaps working with Henry, who had mentioned wanting to semi-retire in a few years, or possibly starting his own small ranch on the outskirts of town. On his last evening in Silverdale, Beau and Olivia walked to a small hilltop overlooking the town. The sunset painted the sky in brilliant oranges and purples, a spectacular display that seemed fitting for their last night together. "I don't want you to go," Olivia admitted, her head resting against his shoulder as they sat side by side. "I don't want to go either," Beau said, "but I gave my word to Mr. Henderson. I can't leave him short-handed right before the fall roundup." "I know, and I respect that," she sighed. "When will you be able to come back?" Beau hesitated. He'd been thinking about this question for days. "That depends on you, Olivia." She looked up at him, confusion in her eyes. "On me? What do you mean?" Taking a deep breath, Beau shifted to face her directly. "Olivia, I know we've known each other only a short time, and I know that by conventional standards, this is too fast, too soon." He took her hands in his. "But I also know that when I ride out tomorrow, I'll be leaving my heart here with you. And I don't want to keep doing that, leaving and returning, understanding dawned in her eyes. "Beau, I love you, Olivia Kent. I think I started falling in love with you that first night in the hills when you trusted me enough to sleep while I kept watch. And every moment since has only deepened that feeling." Tears welled in her eyes, but she was smiling. "I love you too, Beau. I've been afraid to say it, afraid it was too soon, but it's true." "Then marry me," Beau said simply. "Not right away, I know you need more time, and I respect that. But say you'll be my wife, and I'll come back after the roundup, and we'll build a life here together." "Yes," Olivia whispered, then louder. "Yes, Beau Jameson, I will marry you." He kissed her then, sealing their promise as the last rays of sunlight faded from the Montana sky. The news of their engagement was met with joy by Henry and Isabel, who had clearly anticipated this development. Henry even produced a bottle of fine whiskey he'd been saving for a special occasion, and they toasted the future Mr. and Mrs. Jameson. The next morning, Beau's departure was bittersweet. The pain of leaving was tempered by the certainty that he would return, not just for a visit, but to stay. 6 weeks, he promised Olivia as they said their goodbyes. "After the roundup, I'll speak to Mr. Henderson about my notice." "I'll be counting the days," she replied, standing on tiptoe to kiss him once more before he mounted Thunder. The ride back to Diamond Creek Ranch seemed shorter somehow, his mind full of plans and possibilities. Mr. Henderson was disappointed but understanding when Beau explained his intention to leave the ranch after the fall roundup. "Can't say I'm surprised," the rancher admitted. "Saw it in your eyes when you came back last time. She must be quite a woman." "She is, sir." "Well, we'll miss you around here, but a man's got to follow his heart. You've earned that happiness, Beau." The weeks leading up to the roundup were busy, leaving Beau little time to dwell on his separation from Olivia. They exchanged letters, carried by the stagecoach that passed through both Montana City and Silverdale, each missive strengthening the bond between them despite the distance. Olivia wrote of her continuing success at the school, of being officially offered the position on a permanent basis, of her growing friendship with other young women in town. She described the room she was preparing in her aunt and uncle's house for Beau's return, and how Isabel was already planning the wedding, scheduled for the week after his arrival. Beau's letters were less frequent, but no less heartfelt. He told Olivia of the preparations for the roundup, of his conversations with Mr. Henderson about his departure, of his plans for their future together. He'd been saving his wages for years, living simply in the bunkhouse, and had accumulated enough to purchase a small property on the outskirts of Silverdale that Henry had mentioned was for sale. The fall roundup was grueling work, as always, but Beau approached it with renewed energy, knowing each completed task brought him closer to his return to Silverdale and to Olivia. When the last steer had been counted and the final brand inspected, he packed his few belongings, said his goodbyes to the men he'd worked alongside for 5 years, and headed for Montana City to collect the supplies he'd ordered for his new life. He was 2 days out from Silverdale when disaster struck. A sudden rockslide on a narrow mountain pass spooked Thunder, who reared violently. Beau managed to stay in the saddle, but when the horse came down, its right front leg caught in a crevice between rocks. The sickening sound of breaking bone was followed by Thunder's pained whinny. Beau dismounted immediately, his heart sinking as he examined the horse's leg. The break was too bad to heal properly, even if he could get the animal to a veterinarian. With a heavy heart, Beau drew his pistol and did what mercy demanded, ending Thunder's suffering with a single shot. Stranded miles from the nearest settlement, Beau gathered what supplies he could carry and began the long walk toward Silverdale. The delay was frustrating, but he consoled himself with the knowledge that Olivia would understand once he explained what had happened. It took him 3 days of hard walking to reach the town, arriving dusty and exhausted but determined. As he entered Silverdale, he noticed an unusual amount of activity near the center of town. Wagons and horses gathered, people milling about with purpose. A young boy ran past, and Beau called out to him. "What's happening, son?" The boy skidded to a stop. "Posse is heading out. They caught one of the bandits that's been terrorizing the territory." Beau's heart skipped a beat. "Bandits? Yeah, the ones that killed Mr. Kent's brother-in-law. Miss Olivia identified him. She's the only one who saw their faces clearly. Cold dread washed over Beau. Where is Miss Kent now? At the sheriff's office, I reckon. That's where everybody is. Dropping his pack, Beau broke into a run toward the center of town. The sheriff's office was indeed surrounded by townspeople, many armed with horses saddled and ready. Sheriff Reynolds stood on the porch, addressing the crowd. "We'll ride at noon," he was saying. "The prisoner claims his partners are camped at Eagle Canyon, about 15 miles north. If we move fast, we can catch them before they know one of their own has been taken." Beau pushed through the crowd, his only thought to find Olivia and ensure her safety. Inside the sheriff's office, he found her sitting beside Henry, her face pale but composed as she spoke with a man Beau recognized as Marshall Cooper. "Olivia," he called, moving toward her. She looked up, her expression transforming from shock to joy to relief in an instant. "Beau." "Oh, thank God you're here." She rose and ran to him, heedless of propriety as she threw her arms around him. "What's happening?" Beau asked, holding her close. "I heard something about the bandits." Marshall Cooper stepped forward. "Mr. Jameson, good to see you again. We've captured one of the men responsible for Thomas Kent's murder, a man named Billy Slater. Miss Kent has positively identified him. And now the posse is going after the others," Beau concluded, understanding dawning, "the ones with the scar and the red beard." "That's right," Sheriff Reynolds confirmed, entering from the porch. "Got a good lead on their location." Olivia looked up at Beau, fear evident in her eyes. "They know I'm the one who identified Billy. What if the others come for me?" "I won't let that happen," Beau promised, tightening his arm around her waist. Henry stood, his expression grim. "Sheriff Reynolds has suggested Olivia stay here in his office while the posse is out. It's the safest place in town." "I'll stay with her," Beau said immediately. "Actually, Mr. Jameson," the sheriff interjected, "we could use another good man on this posse. I understand you're familiar with the territory." Beau hesitated, torn between his desire to protect Olivia personally and the knowledge that bringing the bandits to justice was the surest way to ensure her long-term safety. "Go," Olivia said softly, reading his conflict. "Help them catch these men. I'll be safe here with Deputy Wilson." "Are you sure?" She nodded. "This needs to end, Beau, for Father's sake and for ours. We can't start our life together with this hanging over us." Beau looked to Marshall Cooper. "When do we ride?" "Noon," the marshal replied. "There's time for you to clean up and get a fresh horse from the livery." With a promise to return before they departed, Beau hurried to the Kent's house, where Isabel provided him with hot water, clean clothes, and a hearty meal. He explained about Thunder as he ate, and Isabel expressed her sympathy for the loss of his faithful horse. "Henry's arranged for you to borrow Mr. Peterson's bay gelding," she told him. "It's a good, steady mount. But Beau, are you certain about joining this posse? You've only just arrived." "I'm certain," Beau said firmly. "Olivia won't be truly safe until these men are brought to justice, and I want to be part of making that happen." By noon, Beau was back at the sheriff's office, mounted on the borrowed horse and ready to ride with the 15-man posse. He took a moment alone with Olivia before they departed. "I'll be back by nightfall," he promised, "and then nothing will delay our wedding." "Be careful," she urged, her hand against his cheek. "I've waited this long for you. I can wait a little longer, as long as you come back to me safely." "I will," he assured her, sealing the promise with a kiss. "Keep the doors locked and stay with Deputy Wilson." The posse rode out of Silverdale with determination, following the directions extracted from Billy Slater. Eagle Canyon was indeed about 15 miles north. A secluded spot that provided natural protection and easy escape, routes a perfect hideout for outlaws. Marshall Cooper led the group with Sheriff Reynolds, while Beau rode alongside Henry Kent, whose normally mild demeanor had hardened into resolute purpose. They spoke little during the ride, each man focused on the task ahead and the justice they sought. As they approached Eagle Canyon, the posse split into two groups to surround the bandits' camp. Beau went with Marshall Cooper's group, circling to the north while Sheriff Reynolds led the others to approach from the south. The plan worked perfectly. The bandits, caught unaware and outnumbered, surrendered after a brief exchange of gunfire that left one of their number wounded, but no casualties among the posse. The man with the scar who Olivia had described so accurately was their leader, a notorious outlaw named Jake Harmon who was wanted in 3 territories. "You've got nothing on us," Harmon snarled as Cooper handcuffed him. "Just the word of some hysterical woman." "That hysterical woman described you perfectly," Cooper replied coolly. "And your friend Billy's already talking, trying to save his own neck. We've got you dead to rights, Harmon." The return to Silverdale was triumphant, the posse arriving just after sunset with their prisoners securely bound. The townspeople gathered to witness justice being served, cheering as the bandits were led to the jail. Olivia was waiting on the sheriff's office porch, her face lighting up when she saw Beau riding in with the others. He dismounted quickly and moved to her side, gathering her into his arms with relief. "It's over," he told her. "They're captured and they'll face trial for what they did to your father." Tears filled her eyes, but they were tears of relief, not sorrow. "Thank you. All of you," she added, looking to the other members of the posse. "My father can rest in peace now." That night, there was a celebration at the town hall not just for the capture of the bandits, but for the community's triumph over the fear that had shadowed them. Beau and Olivia attended briefly, accepting congratulations and well wishes from townspeople who now treated Beau as one of their own. They slipped away early, walking hand in hand back to the Kent's house under a canopy of stars. "I can hardly believe it's really over," Olivia said, her voice soft in the night air. "For months, I've lived with the fear that they might find me, might learn I survived and could identify them. That fear is gone now," Beau assured her. "They'll face justice for what they did, and we can look to the future." "Our future," Olivia corrected, squeezing his hand. Together. The week that followed was busy with preparations for their wedding and for the life they would build together. Beau finalized the purchase of a small property on the edge of town, 15 acres, with a modest cabin that could be expanded as their family grew. Henry offered him a partnership in the store, with the understanding that Beau would eventually take over the business when Henry retired. The wedding was held in Silverdale's church, with Isabel having worked minor miracles to create a beautiful ceremony on short notice. Olivia wore a dress of ivory silk that had been Isabel's own, carefully altered to fit her slimmer figure. Beau, in a new suit purchased from a tailor in Montana City, waited at the altar with a mixture of nervousness and absolute certainty that this was right. When Olivia walked down the aisle on Henry's arm, Beau felt his breath catch. She was radiant, her face glowing with happiness, all traces of the frightened, grief-stricken woman he'd found in the hills now transformed into confident joy. The ceremony was simple but heartfelt, with Reverend Thomas emphasizing the remarkable circumstances that had brought them together and the strength they'd found in each other through adversity. When Beau placed the ring on Olivia's finger, a gold band with a small diamond that had once belonged to his mother and promised to love and cherish her for all his days, he knew it was a promise he would keep with his whole heart. "I now pronounce you husband and wife," Reverend Thomas announced, beaming at the couple. "You may kiss your bride, Mr. Jameson." Beau did so with tender reverence, sealing their union as the congregation applauded. As they turned to face their friends and neighbors, now truly their community, Beau felt a sense of completion he'd never known before. The reception was held at the town hall, with seemingly all of Silverdale in attendance. There was music and dancing, food and drink, and countless well wishes for the new Mr. and Mrs. Jameson. "You've made quite an impression on this town," Olivia observed as they shared their first dance as husband and wife. "They've adopted you as quickly as they did me." "Silverdale's a special place," Beau agreed. "I can see why your father wanted to bring you here." A shadow crossed Olivia's face at the mention of her father. "I wish he could have seen this day. He would have liked you, Beau. I would have liked him too. And I promise you, his memory will always be honored in our home." Her smile returned, brightening her eyes. "Our home, I love the sound of that." Later that night, as they stood on the porch of the small cabin that was now their home, looking out at the stars that had witnessed their first meeting, Beau marveled at the twists of fate that had led them here. If I hadn't heard those gunshots, he mused, his arm around Olivia's waist, if I hadn't decided to investigate. If I hadn't trusted you when you said I was safe, Olivia continued. If I hadn't allowed myself to believe you when you promised to guard me through the night. Then we wouldn't be here now, Beau concluded, turning to face her. Mrs. Jameson, no, we wouldn't. She reached up to touch his face, her eyes reflecting the starlight. But we are here, and I'm grateful every day for the man who found me alone in the hills and kept his promise to protect me. That's a promise I intend to keep for the rest of our lives, Beau said softly, drawing her close. I'm counting on it, Olivia whispered, rising on tiptoe to meet his kiss. 10 years later, Beau Jameson stood on the porch of what was now a substantial farmhouse, watching his wife direct their 3 children in planting the garden that would feed them through the coming year. Oliver, their eldest at 8, was carefully marking rows with string. 6-year-old Thomas was tasked with dropping seeds into the furrows, while 4-year-old Emily helped by carrying a watering can almost as big as she was. The sight filled Beau with contentment. Their life in Silverdale had flourished beyond his earliest hopes. Kent's General Merchandise, now Jameson's General Store, had expanded to become the largest business in town. Olivia continued to teach at the school, her passion for education undiminished even as their family grew. Their farm, once just a cabin and a few acres, now boasted orchards, livestock, and fields of wheat that provided a comfortable living to supplement the store's income. More important than their material success, however, was the life they'd built together. Their marriage had weathered the inevitable challenges of frontier life, harsh winters, periods of drought, economic uncertainties, and emerged stronger for it. The connection that had formed in those first desperate days had deepened into a love that sustained them both. Silverdale had grown as well, now boasting a railroad spur that connected it to larger markets, a proper hotel, and even a small theater where traveling shows performed. The children who had once been Olivia's first students were now young adults, some with children of their own. "Papa, look." Emily called, breaking into his reverie as she proudly held up a handful of dirt and seeds mixed together. "I'm helping." "You certainly are, sweetheart," Beau laughed, descending the steps to rescue the planting from his daughter's enthusiastic assistance. Olivia straightened, pushing back a strand of hair that had escaped her bun. At 32, she was more beautiful to Beau than the day they'd met, her face now bearing the subtle lines that spoke of laughter and occasional worry, but mostly of a life fully lived. "I think that's enough gardening for today," she decided, seeing Emily's increasingly creative approach to agriculture. "Why don't you children go wash up? Aunt Isabel and Uncle Henry will be here for supper soon." As the children raced toward the house, Beau pulled Olivia into his arms. "Have I told you today how much I love you, Mrs. Jameson?" Not since breakfast," she replied with a smile. "I might need reminding." He obliged with a kiss that, even after 10 years, still held all the promise of their first. "I love you more each day," he murmured against her lips. "And I thank God that I found you in those hills." "As do I," Olivia said softly. "You said I was safe, that you'd guard me through the night. You've kept that promise every day since." "And I always will," Beau promised, his arms tightening around her as they stood together in the golden light of the Montana afternoon, their children's laughter floating on the breeze, their future stretching before them as vast and promising as the western sky.